listen, I don't want any more bullshit.
I'm back, motherfuckers. What's up, bullshit free gang? It's your boy, Alec, back at you again. 2022 Colts season. Let's fucking go. We finally get to the real games that count. We have our first game, and it is a fucking emotional roller coaster like none of us expected or wanted, right? It's hard to know what to make of that fucking game, but that's what I'm here for. Y'all know I'm here to serve you, and I'm here to be a beacon of anti-bullshit when it comes to our beloved Indianapolis Colts. So we're going to dive into this clusterfuck of a game and break down what did we really find out? What did it all mean? Should we be worried, or is this just a little blip on the way to a special season? We're going to talk about all that today. But first, let me be a gracious host and welcome you back, or if it's your first time here, welcome you to the number one uncensored NFL podcast in the world. The always interesting, always controversial, often imitated but never duplicated. You know what it is. The bullshit-free Colts podcast. The only podcast in existence where you can hear all things worth discussing about our beloved Indianapolis Colts. But here, baby, you're going to hear it with no PR, no spin, no coach speak, no political correctness, and most importantly and most enduringly, no motherfucking bullshit. I'm your host, Harkana Jala, at your motherfucking service as always. And let's dive in and talk about what did we see in this game, because there's a lot to cover here. I know it had a lot of y'all in your feelings and in your emotions, but we got to dissect this motherfucker up the only way I know how to do it, and that's 100% bullshit free. So let's dive in, all right? Now, look, y'all know when you step into the church of the bullshit free, this is where you're going to get the real deal on what happened, not what we think happened, not what we hope happened, not what we feared happened, but what really happened, okay? I'm not like the media to softball questions or be mouthpieces for the Colts themselves. I'm not a hot take artist like some of the media that's just saying crazy shit to get attention. I'm here to give it to you the way it fucking is. I'm here to give you the real. I'm here to talk about what really happened 100% without any filters or bullshit. So this game, as a first game of the season, like I said, this was a fucking doozy because for the first three quarters, this was really, really troubling. Like, this was like the worst thing you could possibly imagine. And then a switch got flipped. And the next thing we knew, in the fourth quarter, the Colts come roaring back, score 17 unanswered points, tie up the game, then go to overtime and have a shot to win it. And then y'all know what happened. Our good friend and ex-Indianapolis Colts place kicker, Hot Rod Rodrigo Blankenship, missed a 42-yard field goal, which is a cardinal sin. It's a sin to miss a 42-yard field goal in the NFL, but it's a cardinal sin to miss a 42-yard potential game-winning field goal. Not only potential game-winning, but potential comeback game-winning field goal in overtime. And as some of y'all have seen thus far, it is a career-ending, or at least a fireable offense. You feel me? Hot Rod is no longer a Colt. So we're going to talk about all this. Just break it down piece by piece, because there was a lot going on here. So look, let's not waste any more time. You know what time it is. Let's chop it the fuck up. This is a season that I think all of us, from the owner of the Colts on down to every fan who's a serious fan, all of us are expecting big things from this season. So there's a lot of intensity to this season. This shit is intense, man, right? There's a lot riding on this for the players, but also for, let's keep it 100, for Chris Ballard and especially Frank Reich. Like, this season is fucking pivotal for them. Y'all heard the owner. I don't care how much he likes these dudes. He wants to win, and what happened last year was not acceptable. And when it's all said and done, the biggest problem from last year, especially in the owner's eyes, Carson Wentz, remember, That was all on Frank and Chris. So, they missed the playoffs. They haven't beat Jacksonville since 2014. They melted down in Jacksonville. Let's keep it 100. Like, it's got to happen this year. Like, this has got to be a season. Something's got to jump off for the Colts. Some strides need to be made. This has got to be a season of impact, a season that people remember. Some shit's got to pop off. Or I'm telling you, I don't care how much you think Jim Irsay is a nice guy and how much he likes these guys, and both of those things are true. But he'll get rid of these motherfuckers if shit goes sideways. I promise you that. So anyway, let's break down this game piece by piece, because you know what happened, right? The Colts came out and they looked like hot trash. They looked like unwashed ass for the first 3 quarters of the game. There's no other way to put it. I was apoplectic, to be honest with you. I was beside myself. I was like, I cannot fucking believe that. It's one thing if they came out and it was just a tight game, a tough game, and, Houston was playing out of their minds and they were going back and forth. But the Colts were getting fucking blown off the field that first 3 quarters. Not so much by what the Texans were doing, but by what the Colts were not doing and the mistakes they were making. I mean, it was a bad fucking look. And then, like I said, a switch got flipped in that 4th quarter, and all of a sudden they looked like the team I expected that they would be and could be this year. And that's a team that, look, I'm not shying away from this. I believe this is a Super Bowl contending caliber roster. And that should be the goal this year. Get to the fucking Super Bowl and win it. This year, I believe they have a Super Bowl caliber roster. Now, there are a couple parts of the roster, in particular, the wide receivers, that I believe Chris Ballard and his team should have made a move to bolster a little bit. Should have had a veteran wide receiver in here to really make that run. But look, I'm not ruling out that won't happen sometime this year. I don't know if it'll be T.Y., but I believe it's still a very likely possibility they bring in a veteran wide receiver this year, especially if you have another game or two like what we saw from the wide receivers. But I don't want to jump up and get ahead of myself. Let's start with the most significant acquisition that this team made this year, Matt Ryan. I want to start with Matt because there's a lot of talk about Matt that I really don't fucking understand after this first game. There's a lot of Matt Ryan hate. There's a lot of slander out there on the man after this first game. And I'm not saying he played perfect, because he definitely didn't play perfect. But as I put on Twitter, Matt Ryan in the 4th quarter and overtime, he showed you everything you needed to see. He showed you everything you needed to see and what he was about. That he can get done what you need a quarterback, what you need a franchise quarterback to be able to get done in order for you to take your team where you wanted to go, which is the promised land, another Lombardi. He came out, said, we're down 17, fuck it. Let's go. Put the team on his back and took them to the promised land. Now, it ain't his fault that Hot Rod missed a kick he should have hit. He did what he was supposed to do. And I've seen people say, well, it was mainly Jonathan Taylor. Oh, a lot of it was Jonathan Taylor. But I'm telling you, it wasn't Jonathan Taylor throwing pinpoint fucking passes on 3rd and 12 during those drives. Times when you had to have it. You with me? You had to have it. And these are the things that we saw too often last season. And I'm going to do a whole nother podcast on Carson Wentz Revisited. Really looking at that again with the advantage of some distance. But the truth of the matter is, these are the things that last season we never felt we could depend on Carson Wentz to come through, absolutely come through and make the plays, make the tough throws in the clutch when it's winning time. Matt Ryan got that done. I mean, he was 32 out of 50 for 352 yards, y'all, with a touchdown and an interception. But keep this in mind. He had 2, counted, not 1, but 2 short touchdowns dropped in the end zone, hitting motherfuckers in their hands. Alec Pierce hit in his hands, dropped. Ashton Doolin hit in his hands and dropped. And I'm telling y'all, that shit can't continue. We'll talk about more of that later. But the point I'm making is, Matt Ryan, yeah, he had the fumble snaps. But look, I can't tell whether that's him or the center. I don't know what's going on there. Now, the one out of the shotgun, that clearly looked like it was on Matt Ryan. The interception, I watched it at the time. I went back and looked at it a few times after the game. It looks to me much more like a great play by Jerry, used to be a Colt, Hughes, than it did really a mistake on Matt Ryan's part. I don't think Matt Ryan could even see Jerry Hughes. He was just in the right place at the right time, made a great play. Give him his fucking due. Now, you say, well, it's still Matt Ryan's interception. Okay, fine. Give him the interception. But I don't think that was Matt Ryan making a bad play or a bad decision as much as was Jerry Hughes making a great play and a great decision, being in the perfect position. So it is what it is. But like I said, even still, with everything we saw, the Colts offense is number one in the league after that first week. And a lot of that had to do with two other motherfuckers. Really the only two players, well, I wouldn't say the only two, but two players that we definitely, there's nothing to fault them. And that's, of course, Jonathan Taylor, who had 161 yards on 31 carries. Dude is still cold. I mean, still doing it. And then the other dude, I talked to you guys about this guy last season. MPJ, baby, Michael Pittman Jr. Michael Pittman Jr., 121 yards, 9 catches, and a touchdown. And here's what's important about those catches. Look, all 9-catch, 121-yard games are not equal. You could have that in a loss. You could have that in the catches not be impactful. The catches that MPJ was making, these were impact catches. Catches that got you a first down. Third down catches that kept the drive going. The touchdown where he makes a touchdown when you have to have it, when you need it. Impact plays during the clutch, during winning time. We are watching, mark my words, we are watching the blossoming of a wide receiver star, a star wide receiver, maybe a superstar wide receiver sometime soon. But it's happening, baby. There were people who said, oh, MPJ's not a true number one. Fuck that. Yeah, he is. He does everything you need from a number one, including getting open, getting the catch, making the play, getting the first down or the touchdown in the clutch during winning time when you need it. MPJ was spectacular. JT was spectacular. Matt Ryan was great when you needed him to be in winning time. Now, what went wrong though, right? Well, let's take this one by one because some of the things that went wrong are more concerning to me than others. Chief among the things that are concerning to me, the wide receiver room. Let's just, there's no sense beating around the bush on this. This is a real gamble on Chris Ballard's part. And I'm going to talk about Chris Ballard more in a second and why I think this gamble happens, but it's not a good reason. Let me just say this. We knew what we had with Michael Pittman Jr., but during a season where, make no mistake about it, this needs to be a season where some things pop off for the Colts. This needs to be a season where there's real serious progress made. This must be a playoff year, and you really need to make some noise in the playoffs. Advance, at least win one game. I would say go to the AFC Championship game, maybe get to the Super Bowl and win it, but whatever the case, like there's got to be some shit shown. And in a season that important, for Chris Ballard and his team to be like, we're going to run with this one sure thing, and then this other guy that in 4 years has never been able to get through a season healthy. A dude's played 15 games in 3 seasons, and in Paris Campbell. And here's the thing, besides that, during those 15 games, has never really lit it up, has never really been that guy. You, depending on him, a rookie in Alec Pierce, and then several late round guys or unrestricted free agent wide receivers who have no experience. I love Michael Strong, but he has no experience. Ashton Doolin, Desmond Patman. I mean, look, those guys might be good, but to me, they're just guys until they prove differently, right? You don't have enough. You need another veteran wide receiver other than Pittman who knows what to do and can do it. If it's not T.Y. Hilton, somebody. But they rolling with it. So, time will tell if this was the right decision. But, make no mistake about it. The decision to go with these wide receivers is going to impact this season one way or another. I hope these motherfuckers come through, because if they don't, we got a problem. Okay? The offensive line. I'm going to tell you something. The offensive line has been concerning since last year. They look like hot ass. They look like unwashed ass in the first 3 quarters. They really did. Q looked okay, but man, Ryan Kelly was struggling. Braden Smith had a terrible game, was just getting beat straight up. Matt Pryor didn't look that great. Had some big times where he let pressure get in. It didn't look good for a fucking line that, it's got, 3 of the highest paid offensive linemen at their position in the league. That shit ain't a good look, man. The offensive line coach, man, better be feeling the heat. They got to get that shit fixed or they're going nowhere this year. I was pleasantly surprised. I told you guys, Matt Ryan ain't the statue y'all think he is. He made several clutch moves in and outside the pocket, sometimes to get out of the pocket, to keep plays alive and continue drives. But if he's under duress, we're fucked. Let's not kid ourselves. If he's under duress the whole season, we're fucked. All right? Now, the defensive line, I was also disappointed in. This is a line where I felt like they should have been dominant against the Texans. And you know what? They really weren't. Hats off to Kwity Paye, who fucking stepped up and got 2 almost effectively back-to-back sacks in overtime. That's what we need from him. And if you go and look at those sacks, they weren't like gimmies either. Like, he fought his way through to get those sacks and made plays. We needed that. That was great to see. Yannick Ngakoue was basically invisible from what I saw. Now, that's going back. I still have film to watch on it, but, he wasn't terrible, but he didn't really make an impact. I didn't feel like Defoe had a fantastic game. Grover Stewart had an outstanding game. But let's keep it 100. As one of the strengths of the team, the defensive line didn't bring it in this game. The secondary. Hey, I'll tell you this. Kenny Moore Jr., Kenny Moore II, had another rough game. Julian Blackmon looked like he wasn't completely ready to play. Too much fucking beatboxing at training camp, dude. Fucking around, you know what I mean? Getting ahead of yourself. Lock back down, man, and be the guy you can be. He had several plays where he was out of position, got turned around. Not a good showing. But hey, number 5 out there, I fucks with number 5. Give me more than number 5. Number 5 was fucking bringing it. Real talk. He was delivering out there, and he was blanketing boys. So, hats off. I'm so glad that we signed him. But, overall, the defense was kind of like the offense in that first 3 quarters. The defense wasn't as bad. Just to keep it 100. They weren't as bad as the Colts offense even in that first 3 quarters. But they really also locked it down in that 4th quarter and overtime. It had some huge stops. Huge stops. Shout out to EJ Speed for bringing it on the strip sack. Shout out. At that point in time in the game, we really, really needed that shit to help spark the comeback. So hats off, kudos, mad salute. The defense wasn't as bad as the offense, even in the first 3 quarters, but they were nowhere near as good as I feel they can be. I believe they have the roster. On the roster, they have a top 5 defense. They need to actually bring that into existence, make it a reality, not just a projection. And that's real talk. But I believe that, they're rounding into shape. A lot of different new guys. Nick Cross was excellent. Really excited about him. It's a work in progress. Now, look, Rodrigo Blankenship, what is there to say? I'll say this, man. I mean, you got to cut the dude. You had to cut him. I completely understood that. I was hoping they would. Wasn't 100% sure. I thought they might give him one more game. But cutting him was the right thing to do. But I'm not happy that he got cut. I know he was probably giving his all. I still believe he can be a good, solid kicker. But, man, the motherfucker just doesn't seem to have the clutch gene. He doesn't seem to have the thing where he comes alive when the lights are on. You know what I mean? He seems to be the opposite, man. And we saw this even going through last year. Like this season, he had an outstanding camp. But then when you get in the game, you can't get it done. In the big moments, you falter, and you need the exact opposite for your kicker. So, you know, we'll see what they come up with, Chase McLaughlin or whatever. They just got to get somebody steady and who can deliver, you know, a 42-yard game-winning kick, right? There ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about that shit. But let's get down to the one I know you all want to talk about. This is the aspect of the team that is always hotly contested and controversial. There's a lot of opinions on it. But no matter what, where you are, have been, we all have to acknowledge that this is a motherfucking shit or get off the pot season for Frank Reich. Like, Frank, whatever's going on, at the end of the day, Frank's got to make it happen and make some shit pop off and show something this season. I believe his seat is warm even right now. If he'd have lost that fucking game, if they'd have lost that game, instead of just tying it, and I know some people are like, well, it's not a win. Well, it ain't a loss either. And it's way better in the standings than a loss, especially against an inferior opponent inside your own division. That is a vastly better outcome to have a tie than it would have been a loss. A loss would have been devastating, and Frank's ass would have been firmly on the hot seat if they lost. If they don't go down here and blow the doors off Jacksonville this upcoming week, I feel like Frank might be on the high seat. But I can tell you this. If they lose to Jacksonville, hey, if Frank ain't on that plane coming back, don't be surprised. Either way, though, here's the thing with Frank Reich. He gets a lot of hate, play calling and all that. If you're objective, look, Frank Reich is a very good play caller at times. And he's an excellent genius level play designer. But yeah, at times, he's great. The only thing is this. At this point, what is it, 5-6 years in? We kind of have to acknowledge that maybe Frank Reich's ceiling is just to be a good coach, a pretty good coach, maybe even a very good coach. But we got to maybe just acknowledge that maybe his ceiling is just to be a good coach, but never a great coach. Never a coach who's a factor in how many games you win. Never a coach who can take you to the promised land and bring home that Lombardi. And I know Jim Irsay, I believe, is getting itchy, man. Frank Reich may never be that person. He may never be that coach. I just don't think he's demanding enough. I don't think he has that in him. He uses all kinds of other manner of psychology. I know he wants to win and all that. I'm sure he gets on guys sometimes, but it just doesn't seem to be there, especially on game day. I don't know. I don't think he's demanding enough. And look, say whatever you will, but again, we got to acknowledge that this motherfucker's teams far too often show up in critical, important big games looking unprepared, lackadaisical, lackluster, just not looking ready, not looking like they're hitting on all cylinders. And man, I mean, I don't know who else we point to at this point, because some of the players rotate on and off. You got to point to the head coach, otherwise what the fuck is he there for? So I believe this is a make or break season for Frank Reich. He's got to show something, not only the team winning, but that he is in control of the team and a big reason why it's winning. I firmly believe that. And if this is an underwhelming, disappointing season, he's on the hot seat. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was fired, especially if there's other better names out there. You feel me? More exciting names. So Frank Reich's on the hot seat. Now let's talk about Chris Ballard. Because again, Ballard's another guy, always a big topic of discussion, especially this past week. I told you I was going to talk about him. Here's the thing with Chris Ballard. Chris Ballard is clearly a genius talent evaluator and a magician in a lot of ways at finding high-performing players later in the draft, as later draft picks, right? Undoubtedly, he finds talent well. Undoubtedly, he knows how to draft well. All that's fine. But if you don't know what to do with it so that you can keep your hair, right, while you take the team to the Super Bowl, it's going to be a problem. And I tell you, in the NFL, which is as bottom line a league as there is, your monkey ass can go from genius to unemployed real quick. You talk about life coming at you fast. You can go from genius to fucking unemployed real quick. Remember, Ryan Grigson was the NFL Executive of the Year his first season. But here's the thing. This is a flaw with a lot of people who are extraordinarily good, who are genius level at what they do. They become too overconfident and too stubbornly married to their own philosophies. They become too overconfident in their abilities and too strongly, stubbornly married to, quote unquote, their philosophy, their way of doing shit, unquote, right? And when they do, it causes them to make mistakes. It causes them to miss out on things that are obvious to a lot of other people and to see things that maybe aren't there based on their philosophy. This wide receiver thing is an example of this. I think it's Chris Ballard just being stubborn, like, nah, this is my philosophy, guys, and this is how I do it. This is how I believe in it. We're going to do it this way. And I'm just saying, look, as the saying goes, as long as it works, it's all good. But if the shit ain't working, we got problems. And I don't know, man, not bringing in a veteran wide receiver in a season like this, I think it's a big mistake, man. I hope I'm wrong, but I think it's a big mistake that could cost them games. Look, it already cost them one. If fucking Alex Pierce just catches a touchdown that's in his hands, that score at the end of that game is 27-20 and the Colts win it. Period, end of story. All he has to do is catch that touchdown that's in his hands. Same thing with Ashton Dulin. So it's already cost you a win. It didn't cost you a game in terms of you didn't get the loss, but it already cost you a win. How many of those can we afford? I'm telling you, in this division and in this league, you can't afford to lose games that you should win. You feel me? Because there's going to be some that you could win that you're going to be beaten in. So, I don't know. I think, Ballard, he's brilliant in a lot of ways, but like a lot of guys, I think just ego gets him married to his philosophies and shit like that too much, and that's a problem. And it's one that could land him in serious hot water. I really believe that. Yannick Ngakoue, he could have had him last year and not had to trade somebody for him. He just didn't pay him last year. He lets guys go and then has to chase and replace them with guys who are similar to them. He could have had Charles Leno, but he went for Eric Fisher, I guess because he knew him or whatever, and that blew up, right? There's questionable moves. Look, nobody's above reproach. Nobody's perfect. He has made some outstanding moves, mainly in finding talent in the draft. He's made some great acquisitions, but dude, a Lombardi's what it's about. A Lombardi's what it's about. At the end of the day, that's what we need. Who gives a fuck if all the agents in the league love you and think you're number one? You know what I mean? That's fine too, but it ain't what we're about. The fans don't give a fuck. We want another Lombardi or two. And I know Irsay wants it. So look, I went back and I watched this game 2 more times. I'm going to tell you this. If you get out of your feelings, it's not reason to be on suicide watch. I promise you, this roster that is constructed, outside of me being more than a little worried about the wide receivers, maybe Paris Campbell and Alec Pierce will prove me wrong and they will rise to the occasion. I hope that happens. I hope it happens. And if it does, this roster is even in better position. But even as it is constructed, I believe this is a Super Bowl contending caliber roster. You know, that's my expectation. And I'm not lowering it. I believe the roster as constructed, particularly with Matt Ryan, they got what they need. But they got to fucking go out and do it. They got to go out and do it. Not talk about it. Not on paper it looks like this, or if, you know, one kick had been made or this pass hadn't been dropped. Fuck all that. They got to go out and do it. And you know what? Their next chance to redeem themselves for this tie over the last weekend and that bullshit-ass first 3 quarters is coming up in just a few days this weekend against Jacksonville, right? They need to beat the fucking brakes off of Jacksonville and make a statement. Exercise that fucking demon and make a statement to themselves, Jacksonville, and the rest of the league and the rest of the AFC South. We're for real. We're not fucking around. And we got the tools and the firepower to go where we want to go. That's what needs to happen. Because it's about wins, baby. And they got to start stacking them fast, not falling behind and trying to catch up. So, look, you let me know in the comments if you agree, disagree. Am I on point? Have I missed something? Have I forgot something? Let me know in the comments. But either way, here's what I have to say to the coaches, the players, the front office people who might be watching or listening to this podcast, because I know some of y'all do. Look, this is the year. Who knows what happens next year? This is the year. Y'all got everything you need. Let's strap in. Let's fucking come to play and play with reckless abandon and goddamn killer instinct in every fucking minute of every fucking game. Let's win this fucking AFC South division. Let's get in the playoffs, impose our will, make some fucking noise, go to the fucking Super Bowl, and win another fucking Lombardi, baby. I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.
Win another fucking Lombardi, baby. And win another fucking Lombardi, baby. And win another fucking Lombardi.